Well, since many years ago, I think, I have like 22 years being doctor. And I think that after my first 6 years or 7 years, I started sharing my time with some other missionary teams, that they were trying to approach these people. And so I started sharing my time, with that, because I saw that, of course, we found those needs in everywhere. We don't need to go that far away to find a lot of big things, to do. It's everywhere. Actually in your own town or just a little, some miles from ahead, and because I saw those needs, so that's why I started sharing my time. And then, I got the opportunity to be working for ISL. And I'm very happy because I like to teach in some way, and also I like to serve. So I'm doing that for many years ago, because I was working for this kind of institution that comes from the government. We call DIF, DIF, and that's part of this government programs, social programs, in order to reach the people, in those communities. So I was also working for them, and then I got the opportunity to get organizations. I was creating those organizations. So actually we were working with some bilateral, in a kind of a bilateral stuff, because, for example, I invite some organizations in U.S., of course, in the border area, and we were working very hard, but more in relationship with those like homeless kids, those ones that we could find in drug abuse and like that. So I was doing that, okay? And now it is not easy, to convince these people that we need your help, to work, for example, through ISL and giving more support to these people. But for example, when I have been doing at least the plaza surveys, sometimes the local people, from the local government in Jaumabe area, they come to me, and they say, "Hey, doctor, that's very nice what you are doing right now with your students." People like you, American guys, and in some way they have been offering me we want to in some way to work together, but at least it was happening on the last year with the other local government, because every time that they change, everything changed. Yeah, it is not just to have a funny trip and you saw that. Of course I try to mix, also a little funny times and like that, but maybe you could not see how is the reach through this program, but it is very important, because we are serving these people. You saw there's many people everywhere with a lot of needs. Now our government in Mexico, of course, is trying to do the best. This new government, for example, he's working very hard to get more social programs for the people. That's why we now have a kind of a new stuff talking about like a popular insurance, for the people. But it is not enough, when we saw those hospitals, for example, almost always totally full, about people asking for those services, but it is not enough. I already told you also that we could found those community health center, but it is not enough, because it could be a doctor, it could be not, it could be a nurse or not, and it could be some medication, maybe just the basic or maybe not. So that's why it is very important what we were doing here, So I think it was just a short time, but in this short time we could give this service for these people, for the more underserved people. So it's very nice what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. Almost all we try to share a little bit about hygiene, for example, prevention. We try to share with the people how to do that and the better conditions, in order to avoid some disease. For example, the handle of the water, the handle of the trash. What about the domestic animals? Because I'm talking, of course, about the rural areas, where you found a lot of pigs, inside the kitchen area and something like that. So that's why we try to teach them, how to do the correct way for that. And but also, of course, we push the people to use the vaccination card that we already have, from our government, because that's very important, especially for little kids. And of course, we try to. It's very hard, and you saw that it's very hard to convince the people to change about those meals habits, because in like some of your partners told me, actually also in U.S., if you want to have a very good habits to eat, it will be expensive for you. Well, it is the same in Mexico, So we could not change that, because, for example, how could I ask these people to eat something else, instead of just the rice and beans? because they don't have any other money, to get last, or maybe because they were just through growing up, that was the thing that they could eat. Makes sense what I'm trying to tell you. And but at least we try to push, for example, instead of to be using like many sodas or like that, well, we try to say, wait, you should get more fruit, instead of just sodas or Frito-Lay and like that for the little ones. And of course, we have been doing, for example, I already told you, the Plaza Survey. And in that way, for example, we try to do at least a kind of a checkout, outdoor checkup for the patient, in order that we could get the blood pressure and glucose test. And we have been finding, a lot of patients that they didn't know that they were in this condition because maybe they never take those vital signs, and now they could be, alert about those conditions. So I think those are the most important thing about prevention.
Okay.
Well, I think because you saw that, these medications, when we talk about this program, these medical programs, and you saw these people, sometimes like you saw, maybe we found those community health centers, very smaller one, but for example, almost always we could find just the people there, just a doctor or a nurse when they could be there, because sometimes there isn't anyone there. But when we found people in these areas to do some attention to the people, we don't find any, for example, medications, So that's why sometimes we have been sharing with this community health center part of our medications. Like you saw yesterday, we got a lot of a donation for the hospital on the regional area. In some other items, well, for example, food, the people in some way need also meals because they are just accustomed to get the pure basic food, like just rice and beans. And in some areas you don't saw that, maybe because a little bit far away from those small towns like Homabay, but there's places where they has just like chilled stuff for every day, like maybe beans and chill, and that's it. Because they don't have very good works, so they need, sometimes we found like those very old people still working because they need to be still working on the fields in order that they could get meal. They are not selling the thing that they could get from the harvest. Those harvests is just from them.